Hello, everyone, and welcome to this TMForum webinar entitled Delivering Automation for Next Generation CSP Services. My name is Dean Ramsay. I'm Principal Analyst at TMForum. I'm your host for today. We've also got some great presentations and panel session for you. So I'm very happy to be joined by Vincenzo Procopio from Telia and Erkka Heinola from ONEiO. So I think before we get started, it would be a great idea for our guests to introduce themselves and tell us a little bit about their current roles. So Vincenzo, I know we can't see you today, but we can hear you. Can I start with you, please, for an intro?
Hello, good afternoon. Hopefully you hear me. So it's Vincenzo Procopio speaking from Stockholm. We are still under the snow, unfortunately, but soon will be spring. So I work in Telia and I am the head of IT production. That it is really corresponding to the production open digital architecture of the Telemanagement Forum. And I am responsible for the application that support the network planning, design and build, the fulfillment, inventory and service order management, and the assurance. That is in a nutshell. Very happy to be here with you and spend this time together.
Great, thanks, Vincenzo. And Erkka, could I come to you, please?
Yeah, hello everybody as well, and greetings from lovely Helsinki, Finland, where we're close neighbors with Vincenzo. We also have a lot of snow here. Hopefully it's getting away, so we will have that nice spring weather. But I'm the Chief Revenue Officer here at ONEiO, and mainly what that means is that I work very closely with within all our regions that we have customers in on a global scale. With enterprise customers, service providers, in being able to provide superior service. So that's of course the solution, the services, the sales and the solutions that we offer. So it's a pleasure being here and discussing these topics.
Perfect, thank you. It's very nice to have a couple of guests that have colder weather than we do here in England. So let me just talk a little bit about the session today. It'll be around 45 minutes long. We'd like to keep these things interactive with our audience. So the Q&A function that you'll see on the Zoom platform, please use that to add any questions that you'd like to put to the panel throughout the session. Doesn't have to be at the end, just as we're speaking. And I'll keep an eye on those and I'll bring those questions into the conversation after our presentations. So automation, integration, that's the topic for today. You know, it's one of the most profound trends in telecom IT has always been that quest for automation. In the early days of BSS and OSS, that might have meant just automating simple tasks with software tools. But today it drives a series of more fundamental changes in the very nature of the way that telecom operations are done and how CSPs they're migrating applications and workloads to the cloud. Vendors are building cloud-native, modular, standards-based software solutions. So we're starting to see that tipping point happening where we're delivering much higher levels of automation, not just in our own operations, but across that interface with ecosystem players, you know, and be that a large enterprise, a hyperscaler, cloud service provider, wholesalers, etc. That part of that piece of the story is often the challenging part, but as partner ecosystems become a lot more relevant to our world and our growth strategies, it's something that we're having to address. So you know, obviously the classic telco problem of complexity of legacy IT systems makes the task of automation quite difficult. So in this webinar, we wanted to look at not just those internal mechanisms of telco process automation, but also how telcos interface with these other entities. And we wanted to kind of look at that within the context of how that enables new service models for growth in B2B and B2C. So on this first slide, automation is the key to the next decade of telecoms growth. It feels as though we are at an inflection point with telco IT evolution, and you know, many of the goals that the industry has held for many years are now within reach. If we look on the right here at this survey question that we put to the industry a few months ago, what do CSPs believe they should aspire to become? Well, the result shows that there's no end of ambition there from our operator respondents. the overwhelming change between 2020 and 2022 data there is that there's a huge jump in responses towards CSPs becoming a fully digital service provider offering a variety of end-to-end services. So as you all know, the TMForum spend a lot of our time interacting with member companies who are pursuing that very strategy, business diversification and evolution away from offering just only traditional core connectivity solutions. So now these service providers, they're all different, but they're operating in different geographies, but there are a lot of commonalities that are obvious. So I've listed some of them over here on the left. You know, we're very focused now on partner ecosystems and the business models that will enable. We're moving to a cloud native IT architecture that's microservice based, modular, it's based around DevOps methodologies. We're very focused on data-centric operations, allowing that data to move around within our OSS BSS network systems. We're becoming more and more focused on AI and ML and how that can manipulate that data, how it can help us interact with customers and make decision-making at scale more easily. As I said, business diversification strategies are top of the list in terms of, you know, moving away from flat revenue and not much growth that we see in traditional telco services. And we're seeing an end-to-end service operations awareness being key to achieving some of those goals. Also, telcos are very cost aware. We're constantly optimizing and looking to drive margin by cutting costs. Now, all of these characteristics that I've listed here are they're either reliant on or they are helping to drive an automation strategy for business processes and IT workflows. You know, the ultimate ambition of that strategy is autonomous operations. Can I have the next slide, please? So much of the work that goes on and in around TMForum is focused on enabling that automation strategy and aligning heavily with CSP's current business goals, but at the same time helping to build a platform for business which is capable of making CSPs agile and asset light so they can pivot towards new business opportunities, whatever they may be in the coming years. So many of the initiatives over here on the left, you'll be very familiar with. Obviously, open APIs, mass adoption across the industry, the open digital architecture, which is kind of this effort to make a blueprint for plug and play modular IT systems that can enable full automation across functionalities within telcos and outside of telcos. There's a lot of focus at the moment on the autonomous networks project and how that relates to the IT stacks above it. Intent-based operations, some of you will be familiar with. It's kind of happening. We're seeing some of the catalyst projects that we work on actually proving that the intent-based operations with full automation down through fulfillment and into the network is possible now. Those catalysts, they're broad. There is a catalyst. We'll send a link to you in the follow-up email today that is relevant to everything we're talking about today, that ONEiO and Telia were involved in. Zero-touch partnering talks to that ecosystem play. So you can see over here on the right, you know, the industry has helped us to define the ODA along the lines of next generation cloud native operations, so that the vendor community, the operators and the SIs can be aligned around function areas to build plug and play modular IT architectures. And that will help us to push towards full automation, or certainly very high levels of intelligent automation. So what does that mean for new service models? That's the focus of our webinar today. Could I have the next slide, please? So full automation and integration strategies are required to succeed with new services. And what I mean by this is there's lots of technology-led evolutions happening at the moment, but if CSPs are really to realize the full potential of those tech investments, they need to have a tightly aligned IT ecosystem that they're building that can no longer just assume automation strategies are for internal use. And that integration piece northbound outward from telco to customers and partners is still a really big challenge. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that today. So within that, there are, if we could just go back a slide, I think we've skipped ahead a little bit. Yeah, thank you. So service delivery methods, we're seeing a big change there. There are services delivered over standalone 5G and network slices. You know, being able to spin up a slice reactively, for example, to a cloud gaming service that the IT needs to be able to deliver without human interaction in real time, or to dial in the connectivity characteristics in line with the SLA stored up in the BSS, and do all that, the partner interaction processes with external enterprise IT, let's say the games developer. That's all kind of things that need to happen with a full automation strategy. So we're seeing that along the lines of network as a service and connectivity as a service, requiring that functionality too. Partner ecosystem plays for vertical industries. Marketplace solutions, we're seeing automation and integration needed for onboarding there. And so, you know, that beyond that, in the future, there are also new abstract opportunities around the metaverse and things like that. All of these things rely heavily on that interaction piece and that integration piece. So with that, I wanted to hand over to Vincenzo, who's going to give us a window into Telia's automation strategy and how that sits as part of their wider digital transformation program. So Vincenzo, hope you can hear me. Over to you.
Very good. Thank you very much. So I will say, like the title say here, that we are adopting a pragmatic approach, focusing on different aspects of the automation. The one I would like to talk really today here, it is enabling our enterprise customer to be able to consume API in order to trigger fulfillment activation. For example, requiring a mobile SIM card, just connecting directly to the telco, to the communication service provider. And for achieving that, we adopted the open digital architecture, and we are exposing our TMF API for ordering products. And those API, of course, we saw immediately that not all our customers are used to those API, and then we need to be able to adapt the API we expose as a communication service provider to the internal need of our customer. So it's been extremely important to define a solution that was scalable, effective, and relatively quick, to be able to integrate the proprietary interface of the customer, and we have different customers and different needs, to a common interface on the communication service provider side. This was the problem to solve, because naturally, if we create multiple adapters with different spatial integration to the big customer, it becomes very difficult for us to maintain really the entire solution. But before continuing, a few words really about Telia company. If you go to the next slide, so you understand a little bit more. Telia company is a convergent operator that operates in the Nordic. You see in the middle of this picture the country where we operate, and it is so.
I think we may have lost Vincenzo there. he's been having some technical difficulties. I think, Erkka, could we maybe skip forward to your presentation, and then if Vincenzo joins us, we can cycle back to him.
Sounds good. Sounds good. Yeah, let's see if we're able to get connection back to Sweden. I have the feeling this is like the Eurovisions all over again. Usually it's Finland having 0 points, but let's see what happens this time. No, but yeah, can we have the presentation up, or?
Maureen, if you could skip to share the presentation for ONEiO, that would be perfect. Thank you.
All right, so we have it online. So yeah, first of all, hi again to everybody. I was offline for a second, but or off video, but I think for most of you, you might have never heard about the company called ONEiO. So I thought it might make sense to just quickly introduce us, and so you have a context around that. So basically what we are, ONEiO stands for, technically it stands for ONEiO, one input, one output. It's a technical solution. We're an integration cloud service provider. Basically, we are, I hate the word, but we are literally revolutionizing the IT service management industry when it comes down to integrations. And I thought I'd give you an example so that we have some context around this. But you all remember the industrial revolution back in the days when carpenters were still doing everything manually and so on, and basically the industrial revolution came, machines were introduced, factories came, and basically removed the need for this specific labor. If we think about a lot of industries, the same success and the same innovation and automation has been happening. Unfortunately, when it comes down to the integration scene, it's one of the last ones to actually get there. People are still building, scripting, coding, building stuff literally from long stuff, so to say. And if we look at the needs that you are probably having as well, and our customers and the whole industry, it's fair to say that the demand is so high that it's literally humanly impossible to try and address all these problems. And of course, not to take in consideration costs and so on. And that's also the reason of our existence, and that's why we are, or that's what we are trying to solve. Maureen, if we can have the next slide up. So just on a brief level, if we think about the key challenges, and I think Dean already mentioned many of them, but if we think about the market in general and the offerings that you are having, the needs, how they're changing and so on, there is a need to collaborate effectively across all these business areas, partners and units, internal, external, and so on. And it's very cumbersome. We are on a mission to really empower the collaboration between all of these parties, so that people are able to interact and of course be more efficient. Maureen, I think we skipped back to the previous slide, but if you can just skip to the. Thank you. Yeah. So ONEiO is a global service provider. So we are working globally with all across different areas. We are supporting, at the end of the day, both ends of the spectrum, because we are working a lot with communication service providers, other service providers as well, and those end customers, because at the end of the day, the problematics are the same. There's somebody who is buying services from the other one, and the other one is providing services to the other one. Similar issues that they're facing might be just from a different angle, but we are acting there between those parties and working with both of them and trying to understand and of course support those customers. If we, Maureen, can jump to the next slide. And prior to actually giving you a brief glance about ONEiO before going into the discussion, I thought it might make sense to just talk about the problematics, and this is a certain segue as well to the topic, because if we think about any service provider, either it's a communication service provider, it's any other service provider, there is a lot of internal stuff. So if we look at the left spectrum, there's the internal stakeholders, there's the different divisions, different teams, from a technology point of view, from a ways of working, process point of view, and so on and so on. Dean already mentioned the end-to-end services, and if we really want to have these services communicate end-to-end between these parties, Maureen, if you click maybe once or twice, there will be something called a spaghetti in the middle. It means that there needs to be a dialogue between these teams, these parties, not only from a technical point of view, but also from a process point of view. And traditionally, this is where the carpenter example comes, that these things are built from scratch. It takes a lot of time. It requires dozens of technical integrations, take long amount of time, and of course, bring a lot of complexity to it. And this is the example that I meant with the fact that the integration scene has been the last one to really revolutionize its way, but this is still the old-fashioned way of building everything from scratch. And if you click on the next slide, this is of course something that we are addressing, or the problem that we are solving in the market. So basically what we have developed is a own proprietary technology, which is the technology ONEiO itself, which tries to address and tackle these problems that you are facing in the traditional approach, which is adapting to different kinds of interfaces, trying to script and code and understand different languages, really making sure that everything works after the implementations as well, and to be really able to automate workflows, processes, data between the different parties who are interacting there in a fraction of the time that is required. And as we know, technology can take you to a certain point of view. Then there's the other hand, which is also the know-how of the human part of that, and that's something that we have embedded into a 100% cloud solution that is available as a SaaS model for customers. I know you in the telecom industry, you are well aware that you have been front runners being able to package stuff and have it available as a SaaS model. It's something that we wanted to do in the integration scene and really solve the problem of having these cost and lengthy projects. As one example, before going into the discussion and the topics, I wanted to show you one example of how it could look like, so that you just have some context. Maureen, if you click once on the slide there, this is an example of a CSP. It's in the center, we can see that there's all kinds of internal APIs, there's all kinds of different systems that they're using, different divisions and different teams. Usually there's subsidiaries, there's partners that you're interacting with, there's those end customers who are again using their own systems, their ways of working and so on. And what we try to do there is to create this CSP or service provider ecosystem where all of these parties are able to interact using their tools, their ways of working, and having that collaboration between these parties without literally having to write a single line of code or script. So that's just kind of to give you a picture, a landscape where we usually operate and where we try to ease the burden of our customers, because we know it's you have enough on your hands. The next slide actually represents the thing that Dean and Vincenzo as well highlighted. So if you're interested, the TMForum, at the last TMForum in Copenhagen, we together with Telia, ServiceNow, Ericsson, Accenture, AT&T, and Telecom Italia visualized and made this catalyst project about the connected service integration. If you are interested, I'm sure the link will be posted there, and the information will be provided around this. So this is one example, already leveraging quite a lot of the things that the TMForum and the community have been doing, and again trying to develop that one step further. But I'm going to leave it at here. You can read it through and check that if you're interested. So I think.
Great, thank you, Erkka. I think we might have got Vincenzo back now. Can you hear us, Vincenzo?
Yes, I'm back. So I apologize for that. Another little trouble happened. That's
okay. Gremlins in the system. We're used to that. We're going back to your presentation where you left off. So if you can see your screen, you can pick up where you left off.
Exactly. So let me say that a few words on top of what already Erkka added. I was just describing Telia. We just go to the next slide and really reflecting our top strategy. We have a three pillar, of course, the digital connectivity, the digital experience, and the digital infrastructure. And let me say those are declining by selling in, if you click to the next one, being able to inspire our customer, to connect everybody, and to transform our internal system to digital, and of course to deliver in a sustainable way. That is really the strategy of Telia for reinventing a better connected living. And we saw this, that we really need a better connected living, especially with the COVID times that we just passed. If you move on, just please. So that's you can move on even next more. So a little bit more on this on the automation strategy in Telia. If you go to the next one as well. Okay, the idea has been in the department of Telia really to focus on the value we will create to our customer, leveraging really the automation in the fulfillment, what you see in the middle, common order to activate. So being able to make fast and smooth the automation of the services with our digital transformation and the new IT stack we are doing, and as well the automation on the service assurance side. So being able to, as much as possible, resolve automatically the incident for our customer. If you move on. So we can go to the common order to activate the state of art. So substantially, we are able now to start from the sales channel level and being able to activate all the way down until the network traditional connectivity services like the level 3 VPN, level 2 VPN, up to the configuration of the CPE on the customer premises and all the equipment that are involved on it. This has been achieved with an entire stack of application that need to be, of course, orchestrated by a catalog. So we are doing a catalog-driven fulfillment, having the product exposed in a product catalog. Those products, they use building blocks, technical building blocks that are in a service catalog, and then up down to the activation of the assurance component to be able really to monitor after the first activation the new services. If you go to the next one. We can just conclude talking a little bit about the next step. I believe that what also the colleagues were saying at the beginning, the next step for the industry, of course, the fulfillment is something extremely important, but of course, the next step is really to the completely autonomous operation and the zero-touch network. The ambition is that we are able, as much as possible, to offer our services in a self-service mode and via API so that the customer can seamless consume our services And at the same time, on the operation side, on the assurance side, on the quality of the service, that we are able to detect the anomalies and react at near real time and fix and address the problem before our customer really pick up the phone and call our customer services. I will say that is the ambition we have in front of us, going through the definitely the super important topic of the 5G network slice. So the possibility to create a partition of the mobile network for our customer, having virtual enterprise mobile network that will be automatically created and deployed. We already have a concrete trial in place in Sweden in collaboration with Ericsson. That is really what is in front of us, and it's really exciting because we will change really the feeling also for our customer. Okay, I will say that I will close here and get back to the additional question eventually. Great,
thank you, Vincenzo. So I think what I took from both those presentations is that the goal is clear. The evolutional path is becoming quite clear that operators want to follow. So I suppose my first question is, where are we as an industry along that automation journey at the moment? From what Vincenzo was saying, the automation of the order to activation process is clearly very important. It's something that the industry's been working towards for a long time, but it has always kind of been a nice to have idea. But for this next generation of new services and the ways to deliver those services, it's a must-have that we have very high levels of automation through that. So I guess, Vincenzo, to you first, where do you think we are along that journey as an industry?
I feel that the technology is available today. We have a multiple example, but still we have the heritage of the legacy complexity on the IT stack, and in some cases also in the network. So a lot of work needs to be done for a sustainable financial automation journey, let's say. But as you said, I fully agree, it is a must. So the number of interactions, the number of incidents, the number even of cell and mobile sites with the 5G deployment are increasing. So it's really a need also from financial operation sustainability to activate the automation. And we are, for example, in Telia also pretty advanced in the assurance. So just a few numbers, just for giving an idea, 30,000 alarms per month in the mobile side, 27,000 are automatically resolved. Still, we have 3,000 that need to be done manually. So that requires additional work to be able to cut this down. We have the automation on the radio access network for the optimization. So we have the SON system, the self-optimizer network, to adapt the coverage for our customers. So also that is something that is in place, but still a lot needs to be done with the new 5G. So to be able to cope with the optimization of the RAN with the 5G network slice. So being a SON, self-optimizer network, slice aware. So that will be the next challenge in front of us. And all in all, another key challenge that we should solve is the data quality. So there is no automation without clean data and consistent data across our product, installed base, and the resource inventory. So I feel we are in a journey. It's a must-do journey, and a lot of work needs to be done, and some results we already see. That is in essence.
Yeah, it's certainly consistent with what we're seeing. You know, there are islands of automation. Lots of the linkage between those islands is being made now, and kind of an overarching data strategy is informing that. So, Erkka, from a kind of, you know, outside of telco opinion, you know, how does all of the things that Vincenzo just described fit into the journey for telcos with their integration outwards towards enterprises and other entities outside of telco? How are you seeing that playing out with your customers?
Yeah, I think Vincenzo made a good point when it comes down to, of course, the legacy systems that the telcos are having. It's not different in other industries. It might be a bit easier there, but I think from an automation journey point of view and where telcos in general are, I think there are a lot of good things that have been done. I think the TMForum is a good example about that, thinking about these standardized ways of working, APIs, thinking about common ways of working. But as you also highlighted in the beginning of the session, that these days it's not about only having your own house in order in that sense, which in this sense reflects to the island metaphor, where it's like you're able to communicate within internal divisions and within internal systems and so on. These days, I think especially in the telecom industry, it's about really operating in this kind of ecosystem where there are multiple parties providing that service towards those customers. And then it becomes a bit trickier in that sense, due to some of the natures that we already discussed in that sense. I don't believe that it's to blame the telecom industry, it's to blame the integration scene and industry in that sense, because it's kind of lagging a bit from an automation point of view. But I think there are good things that have been done. There are investments internally when it comes down to these things. Of course, legacy has been restricting quite a lot of these things, but I would say that there's the next challenge now, which is really this kind of ecosystem thinking of being able to provide these services together, because then it's not just aligning technical bits and pieces and components from an automation point of view, but also the ways of working and processes, because they are different between the companies and so on. So we still have a bit to go, but I think there are certain things that are luckily put in order already. And I think one last point maybe as I know that many telecom companies, for example, have been also having this kind of initiative where they are, as said, exposing different kinds of APIs so that customers can consume those services. It's a great step again towards having that in-house kind of in order. But then the kind of problematic or the complexity is then moved towards that enterprise or that customer that you're providing the services to, because on the other hand, they then might have, or not might, but they have quite a lot other providers as well than just that one telecom provider. And then the problem is kind of moved towards them, that how do they automate their ways of operating with their suppliers? And then again, we enter into another world of complexity through that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, understood. And I guess a lot of telcos' growth strategies is based around the enterprise side, around the B2B side. And so lots of the feedback that we get when we speak to enterprises in this whole conversation is that telcos can be very difficult to work with. They can be very difficult to do business with from an IT perspective. And so if we're moving into new competitive landscapes and we're in competition against digital natives in that respect, it makes sense for us to have very comparable levels of integration and availability along those exposed APIs. So you mentioned that all of these companies are different. How are you seeing that each one of these integration projects being helped by standardization and being helped by telcos building similar kind of architectures for you to bolt onto there in the integration part?
Yeah, I think from a why, maybe I haven't said it, but if you have the information from the enterprise companies to back it off, that telcos have been hard to work with, I believe that. But I think overall, when it comes down to collaborating with external parties, I think I always say that there are 4 options how to solve this problem. One is either that kind of the other one adapts to the other side and uses their tooling, which might in many cases for a communication service provider, for example, or a telco, be that you need to use a portal or something like to fill in that information and so on. And then in SMB sector, I think it might be you might get away with that, but especially I would assume that there's pressure from the large enterprise that, okay, we're not going to go down that path. It's actually the other way around. And then there's a battle between who adapts to whom and so on. And the third option is then where you start considering, okay, this is a big enough customer, it might be worthwhile to actually build an integration. And that's where we run into the problems of lengthy projects and having all that legacy, having complex environments, because it's multiple parties in the background providing those services and it's not that simple of a project anymore. And I honestly believe that the only way to get out of this is to think about it from this kind of ecosystem point of view, where all the parties use their own way of working and tooling, and there's somebody neutral in between in that sense who is adapting to those different languages. I don't know if there's technical people in the audience listening today, but I think the first step towards this was the component of hub and spoke, which is familiar. It was a nice idea and a nice concept to try and solve this issue, but the problem in that was that it was forcing all parties to adapt to a certain model of operating, which at the end of the day, if we think about the ways today where companies need to be like the Ferraris and you know, so it doesn't work that way. So it actually needs to be the other way around, that there's somebody in between who is actually adapting between the parties rather than the other way around. And that provides the freedom then to provide those services in an effective way.
Yeah, sure. So Vincenzo, you know, does that ring true for you? Is I know that Telia has been one of the kind of leading lights in Europe in driving B2B new business and new service models. Is this something that you've consciously made an effort to do to be kind of more available to that enterprise interaction?
Absolutely. So I guess this is really a must for all the communication service providers. So to remove these difficulties to work with, I agree. So that is typically the situation. It's long, the type of integration project. It is about understanding specification, interface, exchanging document, Excel, mapping data. So it become extremely complex and long, and definitely Telia is focusing on reducing it. And the idea for us has been, okay, we need to do something that is also scalable, that can be maintained in an easy way. So on the communication service provider side, we adopted the telemanagement form API. Those are our main exposure point. Those API are stable, and we will keep having a life cycle for them to evolve, to be able to accommodate all our products. And then we need to find a flexible way to plug the Open API, the CSP API, to a component, an integration layer that is able as well to do the translation and the adaptation to the enterprise customer. So both sides are happy. I mean, the communication service provider has a single interface, and we are able as well at the same time to fulfill the expectation of the customer that they can keep using their internal tool. So I found the ONEiO solution really matching this goal. Of course, nothing is for free. We are moving the complexity within ONEiO. That is an integration layer, but I will say a specialized integration layer that can scale and handle and support this kind of business interaction.
Yeah, and sorry to jump in there. I think Vincenzo, actually, you make a really good point there in talking about the internal APIs and what you're doing. I would say that telcos probably have their hands full with that in that sense already, like the internal stuff and so on, and thinking about resourcing and having the manpower to kind of develop those things and to keep that. That's kind of a no-brainer that you need to have those competences and you need to be able to develop those further. The question then comes because it's kind of the complexity and the magnitude of going external to a party, to another side that is already predefined, and you cannot control the other side, because on the other side you have control over both systems and the interfaces and so on, and you can manage those. But the complexity is multiplied, and that's where I usually ask the $1 million question, like, what is the core business of you that you are kind of providing? Is it to build integrations, like external integrations, or is it something else? And usually that's a easy business case. But you are spot on, I would say, Vincenzo, there, that it's really important, the internal things that telcos are doing, and it's a foundation towards the success then in the next phase. So, and that's competence that is usually in-house within those telcos.
I think it's interesting that you know, the automation story around OSS BSS is evolving, you know, for many years, not very quickly, and then over the last 5 or 6 years, we've seen kind of a very much a concerted effort to kind of join all those dots together. And you know, when we started seeing services like SD-WAN, where an enterprise would order through a self-service portal or via their enterprise IT platform, the need for that linkage to be made between the internal functions of a telco and their enterprise customers, it kind of really focused operators' needs to be able to do that. And with network as a service and 5G network slicing and all of these kind of delivery models being on the horizon, or you know, are being a reality in 2023 in some places, that need has really been driven now. So it seems to be a catalyst for all of those things. So do you think that, you know, the operators focus on things like network as a service and 5G, they see that as a route to service model diversification, new business, all of these things? It seems as though the partner ecosystem is at the heart of all that. That's kind of one of the focuses, and being able to do those IT linkages between that is capable, is you know, essential for making those things happen. Okay.
Yeah, so I feel you see also the reaction of the industry, no? So the Camara initiatives for really making even more usable the network as a service. So having a set of standard API that we can really share across the communication service provider. But not only, if you look also to the 3GPP opening of the network and the network exposure function that has been defined in the release from release 15, I guess, until release 16. So how is possible to expose directly core network function that today it's a taboo. Core network function are used internally within the communication service provider, opening this core network function, exposing those to the B2B customers. So definitely, this is the way to create a bundled service, involve the partner, and create a bundle that is delivered to the end users, that is the B2B customer of the telco, for example, or the other way around, so that the telco is part of the chain and the relation with the customer is in the end of another B2B customer as well. So yes, I definitely believe that will be the one important source of growth. All the communication service providers, we are looking for growth, for growing our revenue. So that's I feel it's the next step.
Yeah. And Erkka, do you have an opinion on how that particular development in telcos is playing out at the moment?
Yes, of course, we're just seeing. Yeah, sorry, Vincenzo, go ahead.
No, go ahead, Erkka, go ahead.
Yeah, I was just about to say that, of course, we're just seeing it from the kind of maybe from the technical point of view, or from kind of what does it impact in that sense when CSPs are introducing these kind of new offerings and so on, and then of course thinking about IoT or something like that, because it's like there's so many interactions then with different teams, departments. There's monitoring, some is providing some part of the service, the other one is that, and so on. And the end-to-end visibility, that's something that we, of course, at the end of the food chain in that sense, because we're just providing the automation. That's something that we are seeing more and more. It has, of course, an effect in that because you are developing the services, you are providing that together with multiple parties, and that requires then the end-to-end visibility. So we have seen a trend in that that it's ever increasing, especially in the CSP industry.
Great, yeah, thank you. So let's take a couple of questions from the audience there. They're coming in now. So here's one, I guess there's a question for Vincenzo around the data governance angle of automation. You know, the question is that automation only works if we have an accurate streaming data and consensus between producer and consumer of data based on business outcomes. How do you handle this? So I guess Vincenzo, it's a question around data governance and what does this mean to the ecosystem?
Yeah, so this is, I agree with the colleague that did the question. This is a fundamental question. Automation fuel are the data quality, I will say. So, and without an agreement between a producers and a consumer that have a common reference model for the data, this automation is definitely impossible. How we are handling it? We are handling it in a transformation logic, having a huge heritage of legacy and trying to federate as much as possible the data while we consolidate the different data at customer level, at network level, and at, let me say, really physical level up to the cable, okay? So we are trying to do this. It is the challenge. This is the challenge to enable the automation, and our approach has been piece by piece, product by product, without big bang or trying to migrate all the data in one container. This did not work in the past and also in my experience, but more federating the data and where possible, building the new customer and new product in the target stack. That's, I will say, is what we are doing.
Okay. And Erkka, do you get involved in that layer of the operation, or is that a question for the enterprises and the operators? You're on mute, Erkka.
My apologies. I was having a really good dialogue here. Yeah, it depends. So it depends. Obviously, we usually don't go really deep into the core business of because I think it's in general when we talk about integrations, it's like they shouldn't be put in one box. There are different kinds of levels. There are different kinds of things we might support in migrating data and so on. But it depends whether or not it's really their core business, part of their core essential things and so on. Then usually that is some know-how and skill set that should be at the telco, but there are things that you shouldn't spend your time and resources on, and that's usually what where we try to support. But of course, it depends on the strategy of the company as well and how they see that. But
okay. And so I got a question about you know, I think we've talked quite a lot about large enterprises. Do you think that all of this is applicable to maybe the small medium business market? That is something that we're seeing operators kind of trying to get their arms around now. It's often been a difficult market for them to address. It seems to me that lots of operators realize the opportunity there in terms of the potential revenue, and it's kind of a stepping stone towards interacting with a variety of other entities, be that metaverse, you know, application developers or whatever. Are you seeing that shift towards SMB?
Probably it's an opportunity. To be honest, I strongly still believe that the core business revenue for the telco are the B2B customer. The small medium enterprise, definitely they are providing a piece of our revenue and extending this possibility to make automation in terms of order. Just think about the fixed wireless access activation eventually for a small medium enterprise, or the unified communication kind of solution that a communication service provider, and making it more easily accessible via an integration and an automation also for the small medium enterprise could be definitely an opportunity, yes.
Okay, is that something that you're seeing as you kind of interact with enterprises?
Yeah, actually, interestingly enough, we have seen a bigger trend, because traditionally it has been so that the enterprises are the only ones that have a big enough problem that they're willing to pay to solve the problem. And I'm talking from an integration point of view at the moment, but we have seen a trend as well with other IT service providers or communication service providers for actually integrating SMB customers as well, and then being able to provide the service to them. The reasons, of course, why this hasn't been done prior is that it was a lengthy project and it cost a lot of money, and there's rarely a business case. And from a technological point of view, we tried to actually address this. Is that hopefully I'm not going too deep into technology here, but we've actually tried to, or not tried, but have developed a component called integration robots, which basically means that we are standardizing the way that a service provider is working, like from a technical point of view, from a process point of view, and so on. And that can be then replicated, running through a wizard, and then creating an integration towards those certain services that are standardized. And that takes, we have customers with simple use cases that there's like a service desk agent who is able to create a two-way bidirectional integration between two systems within 2 hours. And that's where it becomes like interesting as well for the SMB sector in that sense, because it's not a lengthy project anymore. It's not about building and scripting and coding, and nobody willing to pay for that. But if it takes you a few hours to set up something that is following the guidelines and both parties are benefiting from that, that's where it starts becoming interesting. So we've seen the trend there as well, that because our goal at the end of the day is a bit different than from other. We are trying to reduce the time that it takes, the time to value, as to as short as possible, and by being able to standardize and having these kinds of capabilities in place, we have seen a trend also in the SMB sector. Of course, again, it depends on the services, what they are, and so on and so on. But it's I think the possibilities are coming now, because it's not about, I understand nobody wants to build 3 to 9 month projects with an SMB customer. The business case isn't there.
Yeah. So I'm aware we're coming up to the top of the hour, we're running out of time. Look, I always like to finish these sessions with a question about what's next for you, what's happening in the next 12 months. Erkka, can we start with you? What's the plan for your development?
Yeah. So one big trend that we are investing into as a company is we call them, within inside our solution, we call them endpoint types. But that basically means that from a telco or a CSP point of view, and it means that we are investing into the capabilities of having these kind of standardized endpoint types, which means that Telia, whoever, and so on, can have a standardized way from a technical point of view, communicating with the different either APIs or backend systems, and so on, not from a technical point of view, but from a post-process point of view, and that can be exposed to a certain, or towards those customers, so that it makes the connectivity even easier and even faster, without the telco actually having to do anything on their end, because it's about the enterprise customer just adapting kind of or configuring their stuff. So again, time to value is a lot quicker, plus the fact that all parties can continue working in the fashion that they are, and we believe that it's a great value for all service providers, not only communication service providers, because we are really headed into this kind of ecosystem where multiple parties are interacting with each other, and the collaboration is needed. So
very cool. So Vincenzo, same question to you. What's the plan for the next 12 months on your automation strategy?
Yeah, I will say in 30 seconds, becoming truly digital and easy to deal with. So that's it's really the ambition, what is in front of us in the next 12 months. Becoming truly digital and make easy the interaction with the end customer, if they are retails or if they are business customer, and being able internally to make efficiency, because the cost equation is extremely important going forward into the 2023. We had very important interrupt, I will say, internationally with the cost of the electricity and all those. So the focus on the cost and the automation, the efficiency is definitely together with the customer experience and becoming easy and truly digital. I guess this will be the topic for next year.
Perfect, thank you. So thank you to both our guests. Thank you to Vincenzo, thank you, Erkka, and thank you everybody who joined us today. Sorry about a few technical issues at the beginning there. A few people asking on the Q&A if there's a recording of this session or about the slides. Both the recording, the video on demand, and the slides will be sent to you in the follow-up email in the next couple of days. So everything that you've seen today, you can re-review. So that's it for today. Hopefully you'll join us for the next webinar, and thank you everyone for joining.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you.